This podcast is supported by patrons. You can find a full list of them in the description of this episode. Good morning, my listeners. This is Wiktor, Doktor, and this is another episode of Good Morning BSS World. Today we are connecting with you from three different sites. Because this podcast is recorded with my special guest, with Ted and Brian, and both of them are located in US. One of them is in Colorado and the other one is in Florida, and I will allow them now actually to introduce properly. So Ted, we go to you.
Sure. Yeah, I'm the one in Florida. So experiencing some wonderful warm weather. I hope everybody is, maybe, unless you don't like warm weather. But yes, I'm with Fifth Talent. I've been with the group along with Brian. We formed the company several years ago and have been happily focusing on the concept of meaningful work, which I think we're going to talk about maybe a little bit more in this cast.
Yeah,
Definitely we will. Yeah. So Brian?
Yeah, so that leaves me the person in Colorado. And Ted and I have been in the contact center industry for 25 plus years. And one thing that we always focused on, we were with companies, we were with outsourcers, we did consulting, and we really formed this company, Fifth Talent, to be about innovation where there hasn't been as big of a focus, but now is a great opportunity. And because a lot of people focused on process, a lot of people focused on things around technology, analytics, but we focus really around innovation on the people side, including, the employee experience and leadership being the key to that employee experience.
And this employee experience was actually mentioned by you during the Las Vegas event, which was organized in September earlier in 2022. And this is the place where actually we met together. And I'm so glad that actually we did so, because this what you were sharing over there was absolutely very, very interesting. So Ted mentioned already about the meaningful work, and we will go later on in our discussion today to this subject. But I have first one question to you, which actually I took from your presentation. And this question is, what separates top companies? So if we just could start with this, and then we will see how it goes.
Yeah. Ted, you want me to start off
sure,
with
Brian.
this?
Go ahead,
and
start.
You fill in,
I'll
fill
jump
in where I leave it short.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we've done several different studies, especially since the pandemic, and we just released our fourth study in the contact center industry, and it's called the Leadership Challenge. And what we did is we interviewed 76 leaders in the contact center industry and started to see, hey, where were people better than pre-COVID in things like, low attrition and low employee turnover and high performance. And we started to see some differences between those who are top and those who are really struggling. And so off the top of my head, from the study, one of the top things is we had this whole shift to work at home. And then people are trying to decide what's their model going forward? What's the work arrangement? Are people going to be hybrid? Are they going to be 100% virtual? Are they going to get people back into the center? So there's all this idea. But one thing that we learned from all of our research is everybody has different preferences and reasons why. So this idea of flexibility is really key. So those companies that are doing better are offering their employees this flexibility of, hey, do you want to be in the center full time? Do you want to be hybrid and come in occasionally? But most likely they don't want you to tell them when to come into the center. They want that option to come in, and they don't want to work in the center. They can work at home. When they're in the center, they want to see people. They want to see their boss. They want to see their teams. They want to see and hear from other leaders. They want to have social events. So that's how you kind of do that pull strategy in. And then there's a lot of people who just want to work 100% virtual. So giving people these options and what makes sense to them is one of the biggest things.
Something that I'll add to that is that a lot of people think about, everybody maybe wants to come to the office sometimes. And as Brian said, it depends on what they want to come to the office for. But one of the rules we talk about is, think of one of your employees sitting at a stoplight on the way into work, pondering, why am I braving this traffic? Why am I doing this? What is the point of me going to the office? Many agents are asking, why am I going to the office to only sit in a cube and do that which I could be doing at home? I'm just going in to do the same thing. Other people are saying, I don't understand why we can't just have a virtual team meeting. Why can't I just come in? So you have to think through, what is the real value of bringing people into the office, and do they really want to?
Yeah. And added with that flexibility is now time, not just location. When I work, can I get some flex hours? Can I do some things of, maybe I have kids and I want to be there when they first come home from school, or I have to, or can I go get them? You know, there's these different things of, maybe I work 4 10-hour days and then I have a day off because then I can run errands and do other things. So there is now this idea of, I want work to fit into my life as opposed to my life fitting into work.
Yeah, big difference. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, Victor.
One question, actually, Brian, to this what you said, because I'm wondering if this should be a company who asks this question to an employee, how would you like to work here, home, or at the office? Or is it providing answers to employees who ask, how can I work? Can I work from home or can I work from office?
I actually want to answer that, because that you are on exactly what you just said is a great question. We've worked with so many companies that have asked their employees, where do you want to work? And the employees will say, we want to come in the office 1 day a week, 2 days a week. We really want to see people. They then have opened up the office and have had a 4% take rate on people coming to the office. One company we're working with had a 0% take rate. Well, but the employees said they want to come into the office. Yes, but they don't. And we call that the dilemma. I really want to see people, but I don't want to leave my home office. But you are exactly right. The real thing to say is, it's not about asking and trying to build some sort of model that fits every employee, but rather each employee has their own preference. And that changes week to week, month to month. That's the ultimate in flexibility. So this week, I'd like to work all week at the office because I have relatives. Maybe my mother-in-law is in for the week, and I want to go to the office all week. But the next month, I don't want to ever see anybody. If we can accommodate that flexibility, what we're hearing from employees, from focus groups, from all the work we do with surveying, is that builds an allegiance to the company. That really makes them feel like they have a company that meets their needs, versus them trying to meet the needs of the company. It's a whole different workforce now.
And we do hear people say, have reaction, oh, I can't just allow people to come in when they want and maybe even choose, have more influence over their schedules. And there's a level of, what's really important is offering choice. So if you don't have certain flexibility and you can't offer, this completely wide flexibility, what's really important is giving them choices. Because then they're opting into it. They're saying, hey, what works best for me? And I appreciate that I was asked and I had some options. So that's one of the key aspects of that.
And do you think that based on your service, which you did, and your work, which you are running all the time with various businesses, companies are offering those choices, or it's like not so great?
It varies.
Yeah, it varies.
It varies. We have some who are, and they're very successful. That's one of the reasons why we're recommending it. For those people who do not offer choices, they're finding it not good. For example, they're requiring 2 days a week you have to be in the office, but you can pick the 2 days. Well, you're still requiring 2 days that I don't want to go to the office, at least for me. Not this week, maybe next week, but I don't have that choice. So I think a lot of it is just depends on the company.
And when we're seeing people bring, we're seeing this trend now of, oh, we're going to it's not working at home. And I don't care if people don't want to come back to the office. We're going to make them come back to the office because we're going to go back to the way it was because we were better that way.
Yeah,
And
but
that's a
sometimes
challenge because people are saying, I have other options. I'm going to go get a different at-home job. And so we're seeing people who are requiring people to be back in 100%. Most of those companies are struggling.
yeah, but this is a challenge. I fully agree. But the question is where this challenge lies. If it is on the level of employees or on the level of the management, who just may not know how to manage the remote teams. Yeah.
Yeah, that you've just hit on one of the other major factors of success that people are finding in working in the new economy, I guess you'd say, or new workforce. And one of them is having supervisors who understand that they now are the culture of the company. They communicate the face of the company to remote employees. So having a highly effective supervisory team, we have found, is one of the secrets to success in a remote model. But along with that, that's interesting, I think, at least to us, is if you ask employees, do you want to work in the office? They'll say occasionally. If you ask senior management, where do you want employees to work? They'll say in the office. We need them in the office. And they can't tell you why. And it tends to be because it worked that way before and it's not working now. And what we say is, well, what's different is not the agents. The agents have always worked at a distance from customers. They've never been in front of them in our industry. It's not like retail. However, what's different is the supervisors have always had the employees in their presence, and now they are at a distance. So you can make the model work without requiring everybody to come back in, but you have to learn to operate differently. Along with that, another major feature we found of successful companies is they tend to be of a smaller size operationally. So if they have fewer than 50 people in what we'd call an operational unit, they tended to have very low turnover. They might have 1,000 people in the company, but they are able to convey a sense of community amongst a small group of people, even though they are remote or hybrid in that environment. And so having smaller groups, people feel like they are actually a part of a group. They know everybody's name. A lot of folks are moving to, we have a hybrid environment, or we have a remote environment, and it's a large scale. We have hundreds of people working at home, and we manage them as hundreds. Got to get back to that small unit. So great supervisors operating in a small defined unit are highly successful, and the model works.
And we've seen really the people who are struggling in this, kind of hybrid or work at home model. It is the supervisors. They have higher burnout. We did these global studies where we did surveys, and it's the supervisor. They're more burned out. They're more lonely, if you can believe that. And their stress level is really high. And there was a big thing that we identified in the first report we did, May of 2020. We did soon after the pandemic really started lockdowns. And it was very common across all countries that we saw that the supervisors were really having a problem with it. They said it's more effort. It's more effort to work with my people, more effort to work with my boss. So they, and we called early on, this will catch up with people. This will start to create this burnout, this work at home fatigue. And one of the ways to combat this that we also see some of these companies who are doing really well is they said, if I went to an in-center model and then I went to a model of hybrid or work at home, what I needed to do, if it takes more effort to work with people, what I need to do is reduce the reporting ratio, because then I have more time, to do these one-on-ones, to really develop these people on an individual basis so that they're self-managing, self-learning, self-correcting in a work-at-home environment. And when they're successful, that's where the model really then works.
That's a tough subject, to be honest. And I am wondering about another level in all of this, because we are talking now about agents and their team leaders, but those team leaders have their supervisors and then the top management of the business. Yeah. So the question is, how does it work on those upper levels in here? And probably those are very similar challenges, rather not to those on the agents level, but on those team leaders level. Yeah.
I think just one example is burnout, Debbie. I think burnout
Yeah.
is affecting all levels. We find many executives that we speak with who are just tired. It's been a long 3 years of work in a whole new world. But I think also there's a sense it's a new workforce. We have a new dynamic happening that we've never seen before. We have people who are emerging now in our workforce who prior to the pandemic were not employed. So they're brand new employees in an environment that's brand new to all of us, which is much of it's work at home. Just have a whole different view, also based on age. We talk about Gen Z. There are a lot of these characteristics. And I think all of that's coming together to really put stress on the management team because all they desperately want to do is go back to the way it was. We had things working. The problem is there is no going back. This whole new workforce has driven us to think about, and it's why we think it does take this innovation about a whole new employee experience. So one of the major characteristics is the employee experience makes the difference.
And to add what Ted's saying, the reason why we named this last report that just came out the leadership challenge is, so now think about the view of what's leadership going through. It's not necessarily just a person. It's, can leadership of a company adapt, understand that, hey, things have changed, we need to do things differently, and it needs to be about the employee experience. But what they're dealing with is, from the Great Resignation, they have new leadership, and old leadership is left. So they have that going on. And then can they lead and manage companies in a remote environment? Because the way they used to make decisions, the way they had process, we see that things are slowed down. And there's these other things about, well, gosh, now I have this attrition problem and it's compounding. Then I'm understaffed. Then there's more stress and anxiety, more frustration, more people leave, and it's this downward cycle. And that's also then hitting the budgets. Wow, this is really costing me a lot. So they're in this challenging spiral. And what a lot of companies we see do, they say, hey, we want consensus. We want to build consensus among leadership. So hold off doing anything. Let's just get some ideas and eventually we'll figure this out. And unfortunately, it's left overwhelmingly most companies really not addressing anything because they're not doing it fast enough. There's always a reason not to act.
I'll add just one thing to that, just briefly, which is also the idea that a lot of leaders have a economic view of the workforce, meaning that we saw escalating wages around the world, and they believe, for example, that the employee has gained the upper hand because of all the available jobs. And we hear this, if not weekly, sometimes daily, from executives who say, we're just waiting this out until the economy changes, and then they'll have to stay. They can't leave, right? And that leads to the next big trend, which we're seeing, which is quiet quitting. People who are staying in the job because they're too fearful about the economy, but have said, I don't really want to do anything more than what I'm being asked. I just want to do whatever it takes to get my job done and go home. Because I don't really like the company. They have not done anything different to build my affinity to the company. However, I'm too scared to leave. So in other words, I think executives, if they get their wish, are going to have a bigger problem from employees who are there than if they lost the employees.
I believe that here we are facing such a situation that people generally are afraid of changes. Yeah. So if something is working, then let it work. Sometimes we can see it is not going into good direction, but we are too afraid of implementing the changes. This quiet quitting, which you mentioned, Ted, this is a subject for another long story, yeah, because we could just flow into this. how it goes. And I would like now actually to move our talk to something what you mentioned in the very beginning of when we met today, which is this meaningful work. In your presentation, actually, there are three areas which you have underlined. One of them is, I will quote it, meaning of work. The second one is meaning at work. And the third one is meaningful work. Can you explain the differences?
Sure. Yeah, I'll jump in, Brian.
Yeah.
And as you said, to fill in what I miss here. So, meaning from work is the first one. And that really means that the job that you have, the work that you do is valuable because of the wages you earn, your compensation. And there are many reasons we know that that's the case. We take jobs for pay, right? But it could be because you're a single earner in the family, and so this job's very important. Maybe benefits are very important. Whatever that is, that's the meaning. And we know that that is necessary, but we say it is not sufficient. In other words, if the only meaning you get out of work is pay, as humans, we always seek meaning. We seek more meaning. So if only the meaning is about money, then you're going to seek more money, and you'll be driven only by money. So that is not enough. As a company, you want to move beyond that meaning. The second meaning is meaning at work. And that means that the work environment you go into acts as a second social network for you. You hear a lot of people say things like, it's my family away from my family, or it's my second home, or often refer to people as brothers and sisters, and these types of things. And that is something I think as an industry we have spent so much time cultivating because it's important. And it is a step beyond meaning, from the compensation. Now you have meaning in the people that surround you. But there's a problem with that. It's not enough because, in essence, you are not focusing on the customer at the sake of focusing on your employees, or focusing on each other. For example, you'll sit next to employees sometimes and listening to calls with them, and you'll hear them say, I can't wait to get off this call. Why? Because we're having a birthday party for so-and-so, or we're having a food buffet and I get to go eat. It's I can't wait to get out of this situation I'm in. So the meaningfulness is not within the work they do, but that's the third type of meaningfulness. And that is the meaningfulness actually found within the work you do. So we call that meaningful work. And that is where you have moments of meaning. You don't always have, meaning every second, but there are these moments in which some sort of special purpose that you feel you have in life comes out in your work. And it is almost always related to helping others, which is great because in our business, that's what we're doing. We're helping others. But there's always these moments where your personal meaning comes out. Nobody probably knows that it happened. Nobody knows. They're not paying you extra for it. But at the end of the day, you literally think back and you say to yourself, what a great day. And when you do that, it's almost always related to how you helped somebody. As a supervisor, it's how you helped your team. It's not about how they met their numbers. That's what they have to, but that's not the meaning. And so that is the strongest meaning, because we saw in the pandemic what happened. Right when we had to, send everybody home, the meaning from work went up. Everybody told us that in surveys and such that having this idea of being home safe, having a job was very valuable. Not having the expense of commuting, so everything was great. The meaning at work plummeted. I no longer am around people. I don't get to see people. I don't get to have these side conversations. But neither of those really determine things. What we're finding is whatever happened to that third meaning is the case, is really where your company went, and that's the meaningful work. So if the meaningfulness from the actual job you do stayed or went up, then we found turnover goes down. So that's really the key, is as an organization is focusing on that third meaningfulness. By the way, that's a complete game changer for the concept of employee experience. But I'll see if Brian, did I miss anything?
No, I was just going to add, hey, Ted and Brian didn't invent this thing, meaningful work. This has been studied and has been around for a very long time. It got its main focus and kickoff studying during the Industrial Revolution, when you're starting to put people into factories and assembly lines, was meaning being taken away from their work and how that was impacting them. So there's a long history of research here. And as Ted kind of said, they have identified what's the main characteristic of meaningful work, and it's when my job makes a difference in someone else's life. And that's what we kept on hearing. So we didn't go to meaningful work and then, do our process and how do you increase it and how we work with companies. We actually went there first because what Ted was saying, we asked through focus groups of so many agents for decades, really, what's great about your job? What do you like most about your job? What's a good day? And they say overwhelmingly, it's when I went above and beyond and really made a difference for a customer. That really makes my day, and I love doing that. And it's like, why can't we do more of that? Because it's good for the customer, right? Because the customer, they made a difference for them. It's good for the employee. If that's what they say really drives them and motivates them, well, that's a really positive thing. And they're adding extra effort. Even, this isn't necessarily just what they're paid to do. They're going above and beyond. And then the other is, well, then that's great for the company because, it's going to show up in the results and in customer satisfaction, customer retention, and all of these other things that, a company tries to do to be successful.
Brian, maybe you didn't invent it, but you did create something what you have called meaningful work employee experience map, which actually I do have in front of me, and I see it how it looks like, but I will leave it to you to actually tell to our listeners and viewers, what is this experience map? How was it built, and what did you include in here?
I'll let you go, Ted.
Oh, I thought, yeah. Oh, I thought you were going to go. Sure. Yes. What you're referring to is we often call our famous dot map or dots. The idea is that we were able to really came about. So where did it come from? Well, it came from the idea that if this meaningful work is so important, can we measure it? And so we built our own measure, even though there are some others who have measures. We found it that they didn't really apply so well to our environment of call centers. So we built a method, but use of survey, essentially, very quickly to understand how someone feels about their work from a meaningful work perspective. We also then discovered that that wasn't enough. We needed to be able to measure this thing we call grind. Grind is everything that takes away from meaningfulness, because everything we talked about is all wonderful. But why isn't it happening very often? Well, it's because we're doing things in the work environment to take it away. And what we found is by measuring both of those things, then adding a third element, which is the intent to quit. How much are you likely to leave? Or at least how much do you want to leave? Doesn't mean you will leave, and we can get into that in a bit. That what we found is, looking at meaningful work and grind, we could predict very accurately a person's intent to quit. So what we then backwards engineering that, if you will, we can say that if you can raise meaningfulness by lowering grind, you decrease the intent to quit. So we can plot that on 3 dimensions. We have one dimension is grind, one dimension is meaningful work. The size of the dot is the intent to quit. And what you'll notice, I'm sure what you're looking at is an example of one of our clients, but is that as the dots go down in grind and to the right for meaningfulness, the size of the dot shrinks. And that is perfectly found in every client that we work with. I would say perfectly, you have outliers, but the pattern is always the same. When grind goes down, meaningfulness goes up and the dot shrinks. Now, one of the things we discovered in this process that we were absolutely floored by was that we started measuring the intent to engage with customers. So do you really want to engage with the customers in front of you? And what we found is a direct inverse relationship between intent to quit and intent to engage with customers. In other words, the more you want to quit, the less you want to engage with a customer. So what that means is, as you shrink the dot through lowering grind and increasing meaningfulness of work, you also increase the desire to work with the customer. So when we work with companies to go through this process, what we started finding was not only is turnover dropping, but customer metrics are going up. And it wasn't just, I mean, part of it is sure, tenure helps, but if you even look at people who've been there a long time, you find that as their intent to quit decreases, their intent to engage goes up and their metrics go up. So it really is something pretty profound that's happening within the workforce that we were pretty proud that we found. And it really serves as a guide for us to help companies turn around things.
And a lot of, go ahead.
Just hold on, Brian. Just extra question. Just to clear if I understand it well. So to create this map, this diagram, we should go to talk to the whole group of employees from one company, because that could show us where the company is, like the whole team, not a single player.
That's exactly right. Yeah, yeah. It's about a 6-minute survey. We've used it, by the way, in many different countries. We have found the thoughts are universal, and it predicts as well just about in any country. But you're right. What we can do is look at a company, and we can look at it across lines of business. We can look at types of work, all kinds of different things that we look at it for. But what we can do with that is make a lot of generalizations about what's happening in the company. And that allows us to provide clear direction on how to turn things around.
Yeah, and it gives insight into some of those main causes of grind. And just to explain grind a little bit more and how we came up with that concept, in a sense, as we were wrestling through this and saying, wow, there's something destroying meaningful work. So you can do all these meaningful things and make sure that they're more successful with their customers and all of these things. But there was something destroying it. And as we talked about it and went through this process, this is just us and our thought process going through it is, you know what? In a customer interaction, there's not just, in a sense, two entities. It's not just the customer and the agent. There's a third party that's involved, but is kind of unseen and off to the side. And that's the company. So really what this agent is trying to do is they're trying to please the customer. And it's a natural thing. It is a human. You don't have to recruit people who want meaningful work. It is a human thing of if you put somebody in need in front of them, and if they have the ability to help them, they want to. They are naturally driven to do that, and they find that meaningful.
Hey, Brian, real quick, let me give an example, and then you can show how grind works. Several years ago, not too long ago, but back, I was entering an elevator, and I had another employee. It was an agent, and I was there to do some of this work that we're talking about. And the agent came in, and another person was in kind of they had crutches. They were trying to get to the elevator. And this agent was hold the elevator, and was helping this person with crutches and really just, you could tell, wanted to help them have this time to get in the elevator, helped them out of the elevator, helped them to their chair. Very helping, very much. And you could just see just flowing it with care for these other people. I later, by chance, was sitting next to this agent who was helping customers, wouldn't help them at all, would do only what it took and nothing more. And these are customers who are in need very emotionally and all these other things. And you would ask yourself, what happened between the elevator and punching the clock to start work? And what Brian's describing is that's where the realization comes with, we naturally want to help others. What are we doing as a company that is suppressing people from actually helping others, which is their natural desire? And by the way, because we're doing that, we're causing stress and anxiety on the people, and therefore they want to quit.
Yeah, because what they want to do, this agent wants to also help the company. And that's who, their paycheck and everything else. And they want to make sure they hit, the numbers and aren't letting down their supervisor or team. And they have to follow all of these things, like maybe scripts and I have average handle time, all these things that, hey, I'm trying to help this person, but I'm trying to help the company also. And if they're not in alignment, what a grind to be between both of those, between the customer and the company that aren't aligned. And I am the one being put in the position and being ground by both parties to where ultimately I can't feel very successful. And there's a level of, fine, I'm just going to do what the company asks because that way I'll keep my job, and I will draw back because it's too painful to actually continue to try and help customers, but being prevented in doing so. And that's what is the definition of grind, is I authentically want to help a customer or person, but I am being prevented in some way from doing that. And the number one cause of grind, it's also in the meaningful work research, is your direct supervisor, is who you report to. And it's that old adage of, you didn't quit the company, you quit your boss. And as we find out, the supervisor, in a sense, they don't really like grind either. And their meaningful work comes from helping who? Their employee. So it's then they experience this grind, and it's like, oh, I got to do what the company says, and it's maybe then not good for the employee. Well, what's interesting is you can turn that around with this. You have to change the mindset. And that's typically our main focus in working with companies, and the different training, the different change management and other things that we do along with our assessments. This whole idea, we boiled it down to, hey, we think we're providing a service. We're doing this ABC, we provide a service to customers, and it looks like this, and we kind of manufacture it this way, and there's a process. But if you can change your mindset to, I'm serving a person, and it sounds simple, but when you then operate from that standpoint of, what do I need to do to help that customer? What are we doing to make the customer miserable, our agent miserable, and helping the customer? And when you start to make that mindset shift, and you see the causes of grind, and you see that your people want to help the customer, it has a natural ability of the change happens, and the culture starts to shift.
And again, we came to changes. Guys, the time is running, and I have a feeling that we just touched the top of the mountain, to be honest, with all of this discussion. So I'm more than sure that we will not cover the whole topic today, and I will need another set of questions to you at some other point. But I have two remaining really, really tough questions. The first one is about your service. You mentioned that you did them around the globe, so in various countries. Have they been run also in Poland or in Europe?
We have in Europe, but not in Poland, and
Okay.
we'd love to do so.
That's point number one. I will mark it down. No, you are, Brian, laughing, but this is really important because, we are living in a global village. Yeah.
Yeah.
We are running the processes all around the world. They look similar. The approach looks similar, but like we say in Poland, the devil lies in details. Yeah. So sometimes there are some things which actually work completely different on a local level. Yeah. There is a different approach.
Possible.
So that's why I think at one day it would be great to run this survey in here in Poland. And I'm glad to help actually in finding a good company to do such survey all around. And the second very hard question to you. If somebody wanted to know a little bit more about this meaningful work and about this, what you are doing in Fifth Talent, where would you direct that person to go?
That's you, Brian.
I mean, fifthtalent.com. So it's 5thtalent.com. And you can go to our website. But another good way is, because we recommend, go look at our research. And our latest research, you should be able to find it. It should be presented at the top of the website. And there's other ways to navigate to, our latest document, the Leadership Challenge. And the last page of the Leadership Challenge document has an email, a phone number, and also, hey, I want a meeting, to have a discussion on this. And right now, all of that goes to me. And so you can access my calendar and set up time to talk about these things. We love talking to companies, and that's, where we learn quite a bit about, there's theory and there's reality. So we always like to match it up.
Very much true, very much true. So I will make sure actually to add the links to your webpage and also to your LinkedIn profiles, because both of you are over there, to the description of this episode of Good Morning BSS World podcast. So anyone who would like to get more details and get in touch directly with you, they will have an easier way to find you either on your webpage or on LinkedIn.
Very good.
Great.
Thank you for having us. It's been
Thanks.
really, time went by fast.
I must say that I really, really enjoyed that talk, and I am, as I said, I am more than sure that this needs to be repeated, because there are some other things which I'd like to go a little bit deeper, including
Sure.
this quiet quitting, but not only this. So let's leave our conversation open for another episode. How about that?
Absolutely.
Sounds great.
Thank you,
Love
Brian.
love talking with you, Victor. So great.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Ted, for being in here in Good Morning BSS World podcast. So now let's wait for another talk some other time in probably a couple of weeks. Thank you very much.